Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I've got something that I think is pretty cool because it's this absurdly tiny handheld gaming system called Thumby, which is really more fingertip held than handheld because yeah, this thing is tiny. And it is a fully functional gaming system. I can turn it on and pick from a few default games to play right out of the box. But what's really cool is that it's also fully programmable. You can write your own games or download games written by other people and load them onto the Thumby using this micro USB port. But before I get into the programming side of things, let's go ahead and try out some of the default games that came preloaded. First, we've got a classic Snake game. Anyone who had a phone in the early 2000s should remember this one. Then there's one of those side-scrolling, jump over the obstacle dinosaur games. There's an Asteroid Blaster game. And this one is really cool. It's like an old school roguelike dungeon crawler. This style of game works really well with these tiny buttons too. You don't need to be fast or precise. It's definitely the most playable of the demos they include, especially if you have larger fingers. Finally, there's a Tetris clone, and this one is really well done. It's not too difficult to play with the key size either, since you really just need to go left and right and rotate. So those are pretty cool, and if all you want to do is play those games, you don't need to do any programming or anything. It's all ready right out of the box. But if you do want to write your own games, all you need are some basic Python programming skills. Because amazingly, this little thing actually runs MicroPython. In fact, it's powered by an RP2040, which is the same chip used by the Raspberry Pi Pico boards. That means there's a 32-bit dual-core ARM microcontroller in here. So despite its size, it packs quite a bit of power, more than enough to run MicroPython. The easiest way to program it is to use their custom MicroPython web IDE. And this is cool because you don't need to download any software or compile anything. You just go to this website, plug in the Thumby, and you can start programming it right away. It also has a terminal on the side to make it easier to debug things and interact with it in real time, which really is one of the things that makes Python so user-friendly. It even has a built-in emulator, so you can see how your game would look and test things out before you even load it onto the Thumby itself. Another thing that's cool is that all of the default games, even the little menu program where you pick which game to run, the source code for all of that is available. And it's all written in Python. So you don't need to start from scratch. You can learn from those programs, or even just customize them and add new features, or change the graphics. And that's a really good way to get started. The first thing I did was open up one of the example games and skim through the code to figure out how they were handling the graphics and key presses and stuff. And once you have those parts down, it's pretty easy to start putting things together. It only took a few lines of code to make something I can move around with the directional keys. And then with this bitmap editor, which is built into the IDE, I was able to draw a little 8x8 character and export that to use in my code. So now I have a little character that I can move around the screen. And it's just as easy to add little monsters or NPCs and start to build it out into a game. I'm not going to go through the whole process of writing a complete game from scratch in this video, although I wouldn't be opposed to doing something like that as a mini-series in the future. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. I think that would be a fun little community project. As far as the hardware specs go, like I said, this thing packs an RP2040, which is a 32-bit dual-core ARM microcontroller that runs at 133 megahertz. And it's got 2 megabytes of flash, which should be plenty of room for small monochrome games like this. The display is a 72 by 40 pixel organic LED screen. There are 6 buttons total, the 4 directional buttons and 2 action buttons. The start and select buttons are purely cosmetic. It's got a tiny little power switch on the top here. And on the bottom, there's a micro USB port, which is used for programming the Thumbie. But it can also be used to play 2-player games. I only have this one Thumbie, so I can't test this concept, but my guess is that one of them acts as a USB host, and the other acts as a USB device. That way they can communicate in real time. But you could also use that to communicate with a laptop or phone or even Raspberry Pi or something too. The micro USB port also charges the internal battery, which is a 40 milliamp hour LiPo battery. And they estimate that it should last for a couple of hours of continuous playtime. And finally, there's a built-in buzzer so you can play audible frequencies. I was even able to program it to play the song Moonlight Sonata using just the buzzer. But other than music, the buzzer can also be used to give feedback within a game. Like when a laser is fired or when the player gets hurt, you can play a little tone. And that's the Thumbie. It's made by Tiny Circuits out of Akron, Ohio, which are the same people who made this little tiny TV that I did a video about a while back. So yeah, they live up to their name because they're definitely in the business of making tiny circuits. I put some links in the description so you know where to find them, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask away in the comments. They do have pretty good online documentation though, so I would definitely recommend checking that out if you want to learn more. Also, if you have any project or game ideas for this thing, I would love to hear those too, so be sure to leave those in the comments. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you next time.